Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to the Slog once again. So we're inside the main area now, over on the other side of the main building, and we're going to work on a barracks and armory for the Minutemen, and another guard post as well. So, my first thought was to try and use the elevation here on the main sort of patio area, for want of a better word, to build a kind of lower, if not a cellar basement type deal, then at least a lower floor, with access being on the upper floor. So that's what we're doing here. So relatively basic here. Most of the stuff just snaps straight in. I'm trying to use a lot more metal on this one, although still mixing and matching. The idea being that this particular structure, being as it houses the Minutemen and was built by them, is a bit more sturdy and a bit more permanent than some of the more ramshackle stuff around the other side. Whether or not it actually is debatable, given that it's some of the stuff that's used on the other side is big single solid objects, but either way, this is a purpose-built structure. So I realise it looks a little boxy at this stage, but we will work on that later. Some upper floor pieces in there, and there we go, that's the lower section completed. Nice and easy. Easiest way to do it is to start from the lowest point on the ground. Slight issue there, the walls I've used have got the slight curve to them on the metal tab. Do make it difficult to snap floors over the top of them, so we'll quickly change that one. Yeah, the easiest way, there we go, now I remembered what I was going to say. The easiest way to do something like this is to start from the lowest point, or possibly the highest point of the lowest point, if that kind of makes any sense. So it's back left corner, back right corner, depending on your perspective. Other way, towards the left of the screen anyway. As that's the highest point on the ground, and there's a limited lowest point rather that we can put the floor in. And go from there. So, I wanted to use here something a little bit different and use this sort of torn apart substitute door. But as you can see, the concrete's there is not allowing it to clip through, partly because the metal folds over and sticks out, I think. So I've switched over to a flat one. We're going to just group select that one in, as we did with the one just before. This section here is not actually going to be used for anything, it's just a case of closing it up, because I want a larger area upstairs. Could, I suppose, have used shack foundations, but I suspect they wouldn't be quite tall enough. There we go. So, to begin working on avoiding the boxy look of the place, we're going to put some angled roofs in. So I'll do half-height walls here. And as I noticed here, you've got a roof piece rather, with an angled wall on it for the corner there. However, there's a slight error there, because I intended to use barn roofs, and mostly warehouse pieces. It's because for some strange reason the barn roofs appear to be made out of metal, whereas the warehouse ones are wooden. So we need to change that out and do it the old-fashioned way. So back onto the right roof piece, and we'll just snap in a corner like that. So there's a little bit of light coming in over here, but not too much. So that's where we're sort of manually building walls. And this back right corner where the windows are is going to be a sort of office space, but the rest of it will be sort of bedroom space. Unfortunately here, I managed to fail to record a small section, so these internal walls, I put the door in first, and it just basically positioned in okay on its own. It required a little patience, but it went in, and then after that the others just snapped straight to it. It's just ordinary warehouse walls. And it allows us to close off the stairs there. We've got a secure access to the lower level. And this little half wall on the left here is just group selected in with a concrete pillar. That's per. It's a bit awkward because it's a narrow gap to work with, but we managed. So I'm not actually going to keep this door. I just want to put it in place now so that I can build an improvised door frame around it, rather than sort of guessing with no door there. So as the edge of the floor piece is a little bit awkward, we'll group select it in rather than just place it. And this is a shack railing. We're going to group select in over the top for the upper part of the door frame, and just another half wall to plug up that little gap. I did consider using another one of the slanted top wooden ones, just for the sake of tidiness, but kind of like the untidiness, and it would have been very awkward to group select that in that space anyway. So, a couple of doors from the automatic closing mod we've got. So, we'll just move that in with group select. They don't actually snap, so it should just play straight in. However, it's a little awkward with some of these snappable doorways, so group select's a bit easier. You could rug glitch them, there's nothing stopping you doing that. But for this particular exercise, I found it easier to group select, and then they don't jump around when you take the rug out. So, we've repeated the slanted roof technique on the other end of the building, which I hadn't done initially, just to take away from the slight boxy look of the thing. So I'm now going to move some of Aslam's junk wall pieces in around the outside, just to, again, break up the straight edges a little bit, make it look a little bit more organic. In hindsight, I could probably put that on the front, because I actually went on to board up the window a little bit, and, but because the sign sticks up over it, that was why I didn't put it there. But as I say, as I boarded up that corner anyway, might as well have left it. But I didn't, so there we go. So, apart from providing functionality of junk walls, these sort of piles of rubbish do exactly that, I suppose. They're very good for just creating debris around the place and making it look a little more scrappy and a little bit more wasteland lived in. So, there we go, flag on there, and that's basically the main structure. So, this tree. I've deliberately left it there where I've pulled other trees out, because with the branches leaning up against it and stuff, it just sort of looked ideal to build a kind of tree house on. So I thought that would make a good way of doing an elevated guard position, so that's what we're going to do here. Got a platform with a hole in the middle for the tree to go through. It's a little bit too high, sort of that point where all the branches meet. So, 2 concrete pillars to lift it up, and move it in. I actually ended up sinking this down a little too far, really, I think, in some ways, but I think overall it probably does look better this way. So finding a way to support this that didn't involve just putting vertical posts in was a little awkward. I'm not completely happy using these angled ball track pieces, but they are, I think, the best we've got for now. It's the best I could think of at short notice, anyway. They do the job, and they're reasonably cooperative about group selecting in. So nudge that in, and there we go. Simple case of group select. The slightly awkward part rather about doing this though is that see, some parts of the tree are more forgiving than others, and because I've used scrappy floor pieces, it's a little hard to tell whether or not the ball track piece is actually hitting the tree and turning red, or hitting the platform, which you can see there. Actually it's the platform, but it's got a sort of phantom floor to it where the gap is. So not quite perfect on that side, but it's about as close as we're going to get, I think, for now. We've got a staircase in there. Not quite sure why I didn't connect it to the concrete, really, but I didn't want to, I suppose, is the answer. There we go, snap some supports on there, nice and easy. Concrete tab for those railings, so they match with the rusted style much more than anything else we have available. And we'll just close up this hole in the middle a little bit, so I'm less inclined to fall through it. Nice and easy, and carry this on all the way around. It's a little bit awkward, but those boards do kind of clip under certain pieces of the floor and through it, so it actually kind of looks like they're part of the existing floor, which is quite cool. So, these angled roofs are added by custom vanilla assets, which are slightly awkward to use because they don't snap together. They're a bit fussy about pushing up against each other, but group select does the job there as well. It's worth noting that sometimes it's easier to change the edge you're working with, as this one goes in just fine and sort of sits nice and snugly, but when I did the second set of these, I had an issue putting them together that way around and I had to put one on the other side instead. That's just something to bear in mind if you're using those. Stick a wall on so I can find the edge of the floor. Now the awkward part is group selecting this in, because so these don't snap. So we'll try and find the right height, which takes a little bit of fiddling around with. That's not it, that's far too low. There we go, that's the right one. Now just line it up against the wall so we can see where the edge of the platform is. If it's evenly lined up all the way along that wall with snaps on, then it will carry on beyond the end, obviously, and you don't need to put an extra piece in. Now we'll repeat the process on the other side, which is fiddly and time consuming, so we'll skip on slightly. These end ones block up the gap. I'm not entirely happy with how they look, but our options are a little limited really, so I suppose we could use flat ones, but they're not quite the same height inevitably, so it is what it is. In hindsight, I might have gone back and, if I did it again, used sort of shack prefabs, so the roof, wall, balcony type pieces from the wood tab, but we manage. A couple of wire fence posts to hold the roof up. Some of these, like this one, go in quite nicely. Some are a bit more awkward. This one sort of, when no, don't fall off. When I've adjusted it, will look like it's doing the job of supporting two roof pieces at once, which is kind of good. Quite happy that I made that little discovery. Actually, a little bit left, it should be fine. There we go. One or two of them are a little bit temperamental, possibly because the roof's a tiny little bit lower on one side than the other. These particular posts are just about rug glitchable. They're a little bit finicky, but we get there. There we go. There's one more around the other side we had to do as well. So, we need some half-height walls so our guards have got something to stand behind when they shoot over. The idea is that they're overlooking the river here, so that anything coming up from that side can be fired down upon. Yep, one wall in, another wall in. I ended up using a few ordinary shack railings and just snapping them on as well, and just mixing and matching. As these will rug glitch in, it's nice and easy. Getting those posts in would have been a problem otherwise, or working around them. I'll plug up the last few gaps with sandbags, just mix and match those. Try again. Mix and match those textures. There we go. And that's basically it. I ended up coming back and adding a few bits and pieces of chain link fence just because it looks a little bit too flimsy and incomplete at a glance at this current stage. So, there we go. You can sort of see it now. It looks a bit more solid and permanent. I could have used either warehouse or barn posts to support the roof, but I don't think I'd really like the way they look. They're a bit chunky. If they'd even snap in, those. Which I honestly don't know whether or not they would. A couple of guards added by USO, so no need for guard mats, they'll just sort of hang around here. That sort of door that we've come in is actually a little bit awkward because the roof's tiny, a little bit lower on that side, so it's a slight pathing issue which makes those directly placed guards a lot more practical for this. I could have gone back and removed it all and done it again, but it took long enough the first time. I didn't much fancy doing it again. There we go, our Treehouse Guard Post. So this is the main barracks. We've got a few decals on the ground there just to sort of guide you towards the way in. Quite happy that I managed to make use of this little ledge here. Very basic in here. I haven't actually wired up the power yet, and we'll get round to that at some point. Just a few beds crammed in, somewhere for the guards to sleep, somewhere to do any paperwork or sign up anybody who wants to join. And we have the entrance to our little armoury. I figure the Minutemen are relatively independent of the settlements. They're sort of like overarching rather than just directly derived of the people there. at least that's my headcanon on it. So we've got their little armory and place to maintain their equipment down here. Yeah, it's sort of working on the theory that the game's already been completed, the main story's already been completed, and the Minutemen won. It's not technically accurate since I haven't actually done that on this save, but that's the sort of post-main story mentality that I've got for most of my builds. So, there we go. That is our little barracks and armory and guard post. So, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, I'm sure you know what to do by now. As always, social media links down in the description. Do catch up with me on Twitter and Facebook if you'd like to. But for now, I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.